Hey everybody, my name's Olivia Tripp Morrow and I'm a visual artist. Today I'm going to show you around my studio and talk a little bit about the work that I make and what inspires me to make it. So some of the materials that I use that are recycled or repurposed include clothing, other sort of textiles like bed sheets or scarves, that sort of thing. I also use blankets and crocheted throws, which I get from secondhand stores. I use wood that has either been found on the side of the road or has been used in other projects. So instead of throwing away wood after each sculpture I make, I take the sculpture apart and I make something new with it. I also do this with clay. So you can always buy clay, but you can also recycle clay. And so at the clay studio that I work in, I actually use entirely recycled clay to make sculptural forms. Another thing that's important to me is color. I love color. You can tell from the pieces that are behind me that color is really important to me. One of the things I like about color is that it can bring emotion to something that is non-living. So for example, when you think of reds, a lot of times that color is associated with passion or sometimes anger or love or warmth, right? Whereas blue is sometimes associated with coldness or sadness. And so using color very deliberately can also convey messages in artwork. And that's something that I find really interesting as well. So another concept that I've been working with for a long time is the human body and how bodies move, how they are built, how they move through space and interact with objects, and how we think about scale or the size of things, how big we are, how small something is, or vice versa. And being present in my body, for me, is extremely important to my artwork. The other thing about the structure of the body is that those structures can break down. And as you get older, your body starts to slow down in its ability to heal itself. And the most profound example I have of this is that earlier this year, I had a surgery in my back to straighten out my spine. I have this condition called scoliosis, which means that your spine is curved. The doctors went in and basically straightened out my spine. I got 2 inches taller, and it took me about 4 months to feel pretty healed. But I still have many months to go before my body is back to 100%. So that experience for me has also been something that I'm exploring. Some of it is through sculpture and building up structural bodies that if the floor kind of jumps or, shifts, they could fall over. Usually when I'm starting a new piece of work, I start with the materials that I'm using. So for example, there's the piece called Roy G. Biv, like the rainbow, where I use donated clothing and bed sheets and other textiles from women. And I tore up the clothing into strips and then wove it together into this gigantic tapestry, essentially. In that piece, the clothing itself is actually the most important part. Clothing can have meaning that is very personal to us. It can remind us of a family member or a friend or an experience that is only yours. And so taking that clothing and sort of deconstructing it, taking it apart and putting it back together with the other memories and experiences of others is what interested me in that piece. So if I could share one thing with you all to take away from this, I would encourage you all to try to find ways to make artwork that doesn't necessarily mean buying lots of expensive materials, because it's actually a lot of fun to scavenge and see what you can make with things that are already in existence. And it's fun to be able to experiment and just pull things together and discover something completely unexpected. So thank you again for tuning in, and have fun making your own art.